Welcome, everyone. My name is Enrique, and welcome to another episode where I review movies and TV shows. Today, I'm going to review the movie that most people are divided, mostly, but most people believe that is not up to the standards of the previous ones, and that is called Captain America Brave New World. Now, a lot of people have talked about how bad the movie is, how they don't like it, how it has some themes that they don't like. Now, before I begin with the talking about the movie and my thoughts about it, I should mention that I am no interest in talking about politics, okay? Whatever your thoughts are, I don't care about politics. I honestly, it's depressing to talk about it. So I'm just going to stay away from that. And even though this has some things about politics all over it, it doesn't distract for the fact that it's still a Marvel movie and it still has all the silly action that we all come to know. Now, I will address that this movie had a lot of issues behind the scenes, or at the very least, it had a lot of footage and a lot of reshoots that most of us didn't know about. I mean, they had to reshoot scenes from beginning to end. There was some few new scenes that they were shot almost by the end of 2024. So yeah, this movie had a lot of issues going around. But the question is, how will the overall product fare at the end of the day? Because after all, that's the idea. To judge the movie that it come out, not what is going on behind the scenes. I will say that there were some scenes that were deleted. For example, the Serpent Society was supposed to be in this film, and they kind of are, but they were having a much more prominent role. And some other sections that during this review I'm going to talk about. So yeah, you are going to have to sit back and relax. So because I'm going to talk about the movie, the changes, and the characters. So I hope you guys get comfy and enjoy. This is my review of Captain America Brave New World. Now, the last time we remember, Steve Rogers was Captain America, but ever since the movie Avengers Endgame, he basically retired, and Sam Wilson in the TV show from Disney Plus, Falcon and Winter Soldier, he took over the role of Captain America. And he has been the captain ever since. So things are different for him. In fact, Sam Wilson has become his own main character, and a new Falcon has been resurrected. In this case, we have the young soldier Joaquin Torres, played by Danny Ramirez, as the new Falcon. So yeah, basically this is a continuation of Falcon and Winter Soldier. So you guys might want to skip the video if you haven't seen that show. I already reviewed Falcon and Winter Soldier just in case you wonder, and it's on my channel, so go check it out. The movie begins with Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, this time played by Harrison Ford, becoming the new president of the United States. In fact, while we see him doing his campaign as well as becoming the president, he's taking some mysterious pills as well as trying to get in contact with his daughter, Betty Ross. Now, before I address what happened to Ross in the meantime, it's important to talk about the elephant in the room, which is basically the new General Ross, or in this case, the new Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, and played by a different actor. Well, you see, the original actor who played the MCU version of Thaddeus Ross was actually William Hurt. William Hurt was actually eager to play not only Red Hulk, but also be part of this movie, or at the very least, make a movie in which he becomes the president. Or at least that's what I know. Unfortunately, Mr. Hurt passed away a long time ago, basically during 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, so the role was basically changed, or at the very least, the role was recasted to a new seasoned actor, which is in this case Harrison Ford. Now, Harrison Ford is no stranger to us. He is Indiana Jones, Han Solo. And he played the president of the United States in a movie called Air Force One. It's honestly one of the best ones he has ever made in the 90s. And honestly, I couldn't recommend that movie enough. It's a goofy action movie about the president kicking ass and destroying some terrorists. It's silly as it gets. But yeah, this is basically the new role that he's playing now. And honestly, I was eager to see Harrison Ford play a Marvel character for a long time. And to be fair, and no disrespect to William Hurt, I think he is a better Thaddeus Ross than William Hurt. I mean, like I said, have William never passed away, he probably would have landed this role and give him something more interesting to play at. And in this case, since he passed away, is what Harrison Ford is doing right now. And honestly, he's doing the role of a man who's trying to be a good man, but still lowers himself into his basic instincts, which is anger, as well as the focus on finishing the mission very seriously. That's something that I always enjoy about Harrison Ford. Now, the movie does establish what happened to him as in the meantime while he was president. We all know that he had a hand on creating the Sokovia Accords and all that mess with the Avengers. But yeah, ever since the Incredible Hulk events, Betty has been absent. She has basically left out of the public eye, which it makes sense. I mean, after all, her father basically hunt down the love of her life, and he never apologized to her about it. And things just escalated. Things got worse when the Avengers split up. Then the whole Thanos thing happened. Basically, things have changed for him, and we will see why he became the president and his reasons behind it. But after the credits, we see that Sam Wilson, played by Anthony Mackie as the new Captain America, along with Joaquin Torres, aka Falcon, are on a mission with a couple of soldiers in order to stop the Serpent Society, which is something that we never got in the movies. There were times that we were going to get the Serpent Society as the main villains, but they always change it at the last moment for unexplainable reasons, maybe to focus on things that they were more popular, like the third Captain America movie became Captain America Civil War, one of my favorite movies of all time, and honestly, the best Captain America movie bar none. I mean, is one of my favorites. But yeah, basically Sam, Joaquin, and all the U.S. soldiers are in Mexico in order to stop this threat that the Serpent Society is presenting, even attacking a church full of people. So yeah, it's getting very, very serious. So along the terrorists, we see Giancarlo Esposito as Seth Volker, aka Sidewinder. So it's the typical action. They have a MacGuffin that they needed to recover. And basically, they fight the terrorists. Sam stops Sidewinder and arrests him. Or at the very least, he escapes, actually. He doesn't get arrested, but he does manage to escape, but lose the compartment, the MacGuffin that they were trying to get, which is something that is very classified. But nonetheless, it was a good mission for Sam. Joaquin and Sam share a moment. They go back to Washington, in which they meet with Isaiah Bradley, who is played brilliantly by Carl Lumbly. Now, we all know who Carl Lumbly is, right? The man who voiced Martian Manhunter in Justice League and come back as Isaiah Bradley, who was the second incarnation of Captain America in the comics. And it's good to see that he's back and he's actually more laid back, but still a little shaking considering the fact that he was invited along with Sam and Joaquin to the White House. Now, if you haven't seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you know that Isaiah suffered an injustice as a person of color and became a guinea pig for the super soldier program. And it cost him dearly. It cost him years of freedom. But in the end, Sam convinces him to go to the party in the White House, or not a party, a reunion of sorts, because they're going to announce something monumental that could change the landscape of the entire world, or at the very least, be the shaking foundation of things to come in the MCU. So that's why they were invited to this reunion. Meanwhile, we see that Ross is visiting his wife's grave and talking to one of the agents, one of his private securities, to see that the agreement is see through because he has some plans. Now, the agent who's in charge of protecting Ross is Sosha Roquemore, played by Lydia Taylor. Now, obviously, she's in the Secret Service, and more importantly, she has a connection with Sam Wilson. And they both talk about how they try to keep an eye on Thunderbolt Ross to not go up on the hinges, because after all, after the amount of crap that Thaddeus Ross laid down to them, to the Avengers overall, is definitely something that they need to keep an eye on. But yeah, things are relatively calm. We see Isaiah, Joaquin, and Sam going and arriving to the White House, taking some pictures. Nothing out of the ordinary, just things happening normally. And we see that Sam is escorted to one of the offices in the White House to talk to President Ross. So it's very simple. Ross has the idea of bringing the Avengers back together. Despite the differences, he says that he wants to bring the Avengers back in order to combat and protect the planet for any other threat other than Thanos. Sam is obviously hesitant because keep in mind that Ross basically disbanded the Avengers with his Sokovia Accords, but ever since the Sokovia Accords and the incidents of Captain America Civil War, things have changed. So he is basically trying to turn a new lean on life. But Sam is understandably shaken by the ordeal. And he presents Sam to the new Prime Minister of Japan called Osaki, played by Takehiro Hira. So yeah, the reunion begins and we see that Sam and Joaquin and Isaiah are seeing that Ross is presenting the idea of making an agreement with some countries about the metal that they were discovering in the Celestial. Now, if you haven't seen The Eternals, and I'm sure the majority of you didn't because of the reviews that they didn't like that movie, but I'm going to make this simple. One of the Celestials that was supposed to burst out of the planet died, and the corpse was basically laying into the ocean. Basically is in the planet and surrounded by water. And the metal that they discovered on the Celestial was none other than adamantium. If you know anything about Wolverine, you know that's the metal that he uses to his basically blades, his claws, basically his metal claws. And yeah, in this case, they discovered the adamantium for the first time on this planet, and Ross is trying to make every country to agree not to take it unless they all agree to take it. Some of the countries or some private parties have already taken the adamantium for their own research and their own private militia weapons, but basically Ross tries to make the agreement not to take it all for granted. Now, I honestly, as an MCU fan, I really enjoy that they actually addressed that the metal on the Celestial was actually adamantium. Now, since this is taking a connection between the US and Japan, we all know that Logan has connections between the US government and as well as Japan government. So if you haven't seen the Wolverine, they also have adamantium as well. Now, I don't expect this to be connected to the Hugh Jackman Wolverine because this is not a prequel or anything. And as far as I know, there is no Wolverine in the MCU yet, so we're going to have to wait and see. But yeah, basically the agreement is supposed to be that all countries don't take any of the pieces of adamantium for themselves. In fact, the adamantium was the component that they stole at the beginning of the movie that the Serpent Society wanted to acquire. But yeah, as the reunion was keep going, we see that Isaiah starts attacking the president along with other soldiers and a lot of invited guests. And it's up to Sam to stop Isaiah and to figure out what the hell is going on. So yeah, Isaiah is sent to prison, and Sam turns to talk to the president to see that this was all a mistake, that this has to be a trap of sorts, because Isaiah wouldn't attack the White House without any reason. None of the other invitees would attack without any some sort of reason, and he doesn't think that they were traitors. However, Ross is in his mindset of he needs to eliminate the threat, and he's keeping information from Sam that we are going to see display. But yeah, basically telling to Sam that he's not Steve Rogers and he needs to get in line. Meanwhile, we see that Ross is presenting to Sam to a new security soldier that he has, in which her name is Ruth Bat-Seraph, which is a Black Widow former agent. That if you've seen the Black Widow movie, you see she's one of the few Black Widow agents that disbanded or at the release was free from the program. She's played by Shira Haas, so it's good to see. And basically, she's very dead end or basically focused on her job and listening to the president's orders. And Sam leaves all confused and anger, but tries to figure out what the hell happened to Isaiah, asking him in prison what the hell did he do. Isaiah just not knowing what to do, not knowing what to say, because it was like he wasn't in control. And that's something that is going to be played throughout the movie because it's going to be playing a big part. Meanwhile, we see that Ross is calling to a facility in which they're trying to see if the package, or at the very least, one of the inmates, is behaved well. So, yeah, it's up to Sam to figure out what's going on. Then he gets attacked by Sidewinder, in which he tries to kill Sam, but he quickly dispatches of him and decides to investigate and go to the bottom of what the hell is going on, because it's all confusing for him, because he doesn't know why the Sidewinder knew where he was, or why Isaiah and the other invitees start attacking. So this is all getting into a huge mess, and it's up to Sam and to Joaquin to get to the bottom of this entire conspiracy. As Ross tries to keep all the other countries on check and trying to ease them into not stopping the agreement, as well as trying to find where Osaki is, we see that Ruth is conducting her own investigation and trying to figure out what is going on. So Ross decides to go to Japan. Meanwhile, Sam and Joaquin track the phone where Sidewinder was calling in, and they discover a little base in West Virginia called Campus Echo 1, which is guarded by presidential soldiers. So this is all becoming very familiar, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. Because as Ross is on his way to Japan, he gets a call from Camp Echo 1, and instead of one of his soldiers, is actually a voice, a man who he recognizes, but we don't know yet, or at least we know, but let's pretend that we don't know, but Ross does know, and tries to ease him, tries to convince him that he didn't betray him. So yeah, things are not getting good for Ross, and he starts to get a little tense, and is getting a little bit angry. So as Beth is investigating the circumstances and seeing that the majority of the invitees were killed by other soldiers in prison, except for Isaiah, he's actually safe, we see that Sam and Joaquin infiltrate the base, where they discover some sort of lab and experiments done. We see some footage, and in this case, we see a footage of a lecture made by Samuel Stern. Now, this is also bringing continuity to the Incredible Hulk. So, as we all know, Samuel Stern was one of the scientists that Bruce and Betty went to in order to find a cure. And we discover that Samuel has been keeping samples of the Hulk's blood in his lab. After the events of the Incredible Hulk, when Abomination was created by none other than Samuel Stern, some of the blood of the Hulk dropped into Samuel's brain, and as we see in the movie, it mutated into being more intelligent. It has gamma radiation in his head and basically making him more making him smarter, intelligent, making him more dangerous, basically. And that's where he reveals himself to Sam and Joaquin, revealing that he was actually guarded by the President Ross himself. That after he became the man in the White House, after Ross became the president, that he promised to Stern that he will take care of him, or at the very least find a cure for his condition and to go back to normal. But of course, he felt that he was betrayed and used more as a guinea pig. So he decides to make his mission to destroy Thunderbolt Ross and his entire life. So as he does, he controls some of the soldiers using a music called Mr. Blue. Now, it actually makes more sense because one of his code names was actually Mr. Blue from The Incredible Hulk when he was talking to Bruce Banner. That was one of the songs that he used to play. One of his nicknames that he used to put in his computer, and that is one of the songs that he's using in this movie in order to manipulate and control his subjects. He has spent almost months planning his revenge by controlling some of the sections using flashlights and some of the technology to control other people's actions. So yeah, it's getting worse and worse for our friends. Now, we also see that Sam, Joaquin, and Ruth are now working together after dispatching some of the Stern's mind control soldiers. They go and meet to their friend in the military, Dennis Derpy, in order to figure out what's going on, as well as to talk to Signwinder about what is he planning to do, what is Stern planning to do, considering that he was one of the benefactors that paid the Serpent Society to retrieve the adamantium. But it was basically all a ruse for him. It was basically a way of manipulating people. So yeah, it is getting worse. Interesting fact about the character of Dennis Derpy. He's played by William Mark McCulloch, who voices one of the characters in one of the few Lego movies of Marvel, and it's honestly good to see. I actually like that. But yeah, basically Dennis is trying to help our heroes. As they get the information, we see that Ross is trying to negotiate the agreement with Osaki, but things are just getting complicated and they're getting worse and worse and worse. And yeah, things are just getting worse. So Sam and Joaquin go to the ocean where the celestial alien is, and they go and confront President Ross, in which he tells Sam everything, why he's doing everything, Stern, the adamantium, and the agreement, because he was diagnosed with a heart disease and he doesn't have much time left. He actually says that his heart was given up and he didn't have much to live for. And honestly, it's an interesting plot line because it's showing how much anger he had and how much his heart couldn't take it anymore. In fact, they actually addressed the heart condition in Captain America Civil War. So this is no brand new to us. Unless you haven't seen that movie, because unless you didn't, which honestly, who wouldn't see Captain America Civil War? I'm babbling about, but basically, yeah. Sam basically finds out that he did all of this in order to basically get close to his daughter, to basically trying to make amends and do the right thing for once, because he felt he never did anything right in his life. And he's trying his best to not only survive as the president, but also make good things, make a change, and actually be an agent of change, which is something that I actually like about Ross in this movie. Because one of the things that I always saw from Ross is that he was always angry and always focused on his mission, his reputation, his entire life is all around being seen as a guy who can get the job done. And in this case, as a president, he basically is trying to do the right thing, but he has made so many mistakes that it's hard for him to get out of this one. So it's up to Sam and Joaquin to stop the forces from attacking each other from the US to Japan. And meanwhile, we see that Samuel Stern is calling Ross from one of his encrypted phones in order to get him angry, because that's his whole mission. He wants to make Ross angry because the pills that he essentially created for him were gamma based, which is one of the reasons he's been taking those pills throughout the entire movie, because those gamma pills allow him to survive and have his heart to heal a little bit more. But it has a side effect that will make him angry and almost become a whole like beast. And that's something that he's trying to control. And the more Samuel is aching him and not being able to tell anyone, Sam and Joaquin are trying to stop everything, which they managed to do, but Joaquin gets injured in the process, and basically he gets injured in one of the attacks. So Sam has to rescue him, and he manages to stop everything. Ross manages to keep it under control. Samuel is so frustrated, so he has to move on to Plan B. As Joaquin is in the hospital in Washington and Sam is tending to him, seeing that he is okay, we see that Bucky pays a visit to him. It's honestly good to see Bucky trying to give more encouragement to Sam and trying to let him know that it's not his fault. That is a burden to be Captain America, but he was the right guy to be Captain America, and that Sam should continue the fight no matter how hard or how painful it gets. So yeah, things are looking up for Sam, at least for now. As Bucky leaves, Ruth makes a comment of how attractive he is. Like, seriously, almost in every property of Marvel, I see that people are lusting for Bucky, even men. I don't know why. I mean, he's 100 years old. Let it go, man. Has other things in his mind, like going after the Thunderbolts or becoming a Thunderbolt. Save it for the next movie. But yeah, as Sam is outside of the hospital, he's confronted by Stern, in which he tells him that he has a plan B in order to get Ross very angry. Now, I'm going to talk about the effects on Samuel Stern later on, because it's one of the issues of the reshoots, but I'm going to get to that when I get to it. But yeah, basically, as Ross is issuing a press conference, issuing the agreement, and people are bombarding him with questions, making him more angry, there's a recording that Samuel did, and it was put on the press conference, in which it was the conversation that they have on the phone while Ross was on the plane. And that is making him angry enough in order to turn him into Red Hulk. So yeah, it took an hour and a half of movie, but he basically turned into a Red Hulk. Something that a lot of people will either love or hate. Personally, I love to see the design, and I'm glad that it was Harrison Ford who became the Red Hulk, because he looks amazing. But yeah, basically, as the Red Hulk, he gets angry and starts causing destruction, and Sam has to stop him. So the fight ensues throughout the entire White House. Sam gets Ross away and tries to fight him as the Red Hulk. Things are escalating and escalating. Uh, with the vibranium wings, he tries to knock him off his feet, but in the end, he manages to calm him down. Ross turns back into normal, but after a while, he goes back to prison, to one of the prisons from Captain America: Civil War, where most of the villains are, the superpower villains are. And yeah, basically Ross is in prison and in jail. Basically, he has to resign. He had to resign as the president, and he had to go to the prison, to the raft. He went. And while Sam is happy to see him, he tells him that the Osaki agreement, the agreement between Japan and U.S., it actually went through, and they call it the Osaki-Ross Agreement. So it basically means that all nations came together, and honestly, it was everything that Ross could have asked for. That he could do the right thing for once, even as the president. And even though he's no longer the president, then he's glad that he actually did something right for once. Which was enough for his daughter to come and visit him. They had a conversation before he turned into a Red Hulk on the phone trying to make amends, but this is the one that finally we see Betty, played once again by Liv Tyler, and seeing Ross, seeing his daughter for the first time in years, and that's honestly wholesome. Now, it's important to address that there were one of the reshoots that we saw in the behind the scenes, as well as in some of the trailer footage, was that of a funeral, which I assume, judging by the whole inner deal, that it was supposed to be of Thunderbolt Ross, that he will die as the Red Hulk, and that will cause Betty to come and Sam to relinquish his title as Captain America, which would have been a disaster, honestly. But I'm glad that they went to this ending. Bad CG background screen and all. I actually like it. So yeah, Ross is in prison, but the agreements were come through. Stern is also in the raft. Isaiah is exonerated, and Sam goes to pay a visit to Joaquin, who is recuperating from his injuries. And Sam tells to Joaquin that he wants him in the Avengers. They want to reform the Avengers again, and Falcon, the new Falcon, will be a good addition. So yeah, the movie ends. The post-credit scene shows Sam confronting Stern in the raft and telling Sam that there is an impending danger throughout the multiverse. So yeah, basically Samuel Stern is smart enough to realize that the Secret Wars are coming. So yeah, it's getting bigger and bigger. But now let's talk about the movie. So what are my thoughts on the movie? Why people don't like this movie? Well, even though I personally like some of the plot lines, I feel that it lacks the wow factor, and that for a movie that has a lot of big things happening, there's no consequences, or at the very least there hasn't seemed very big consequences that we saw in previous Captain America movies. What do I mean by that? Well, look back at the first Captain America movie. The consequence of him saving the world in World War II was that he got frozen into modern times. In Captain America, the Winter Soldier, it was the fall of Hydra, which was also S.H.I.E.L.D. in disguise, causing the whole organization to crumble and to deal on its own. And Captain America Civil War was the deal of the fall of the Avengers and Steve Rogers relinquishing his name as Captain America, or for at the very least until Endgame. But yeah, it had its consequences. This movie, while we see Ross pay for his actions and going to jail, and while he makes the agreement of the Osaki-Ross agreements of not retrieving the adamantium, there is not much to say about this movie that has a wow factor or big consequences, in my opinion. It also has a lot of issues of pacing and inconsistency. Sometimes we see that the reshoots are obvious in some scenes. Others we see that they mostly rely on action, where it was less about action and more about, about drama and character development. And that's the thing. Sam Wilson doesn't change in this movie. He basically stays the same throughout the entire film. Now, you can make the argument that Captain America didn't change, but he actually did. Because in the first one, it was all about becoming a symbol of hope and be a hero. But overall, he realizes how much harder it is to be a soldier in the World War II. In Winter Soldier, he realizes that he couldn't trust anybody unless they earned the trust. And in Civil War, he basically realizes that he couldn't be a symbol of America because he was more than that. He was actually more of a man than a symbol. So that's one of the things. Sam, on the other hand, well, it's good to see him as Captain America. It's not enough to see what new developments are. I mean, we see through others, Joaquin is trying to show humbleness and overall character, but it's still not enough. I think that's one of the reasons why they sour on this film. Some of the characters, like Samuel Stern, they also are upset because in the promotions it was supposed to be more comic more accurate of being a big cucumber head, and in this movie it was more zombie like. Personally, speaking as a fan of the Hulk, I kind of like this design more because not only did they resemble the comics that they were based on, but it's also showing how monstrous and insidious the leader can be. Because that's what Samuel Stern is, a smart man, but also a very creepy man. And honestly, is showing more creepiness than in here than it would have been if he had the cucumber face or the cucumber head. The one role that I actually enjoyed for this movie is, like I said, Harrison Ford as Thaddeus Ross, aka Red Hulk. Not only did he display good attributes as anger as the Red Hulk, but also showing a lot of more character development than Sam, because he's trying to do the right thing and he's paying the ultimate price because of it. And while many people might be weirded out for the recasting, I honestly think that this is the perfect role to be at. And it's good to see him be in this movie. And even though whatever your thoughts about politics or about him becoming the president, I don't care that much, but it was good to see the character development on Thaddeus Ross and showing him as a one big note. So yeah, I personally enjoyed this movie, but I don't think this is one of the best that Marvel has offered. And we have to wait and see if the others fare best. We have Thunderbolt and Fantastic Four First Steps coming out this year, so hopefully those movies will be a lot better than this one. But yeah, I don't think I hate this movie as much as everybody else. You can call me a Marvel fanatic, but that's my overall thoughts. I just think that this movie could have used more of a stake in consequence, if I make myself clear. But yeah, overall, that's my thoughts on the movie. And next week, we're going to deal into a more real documentary things. You'll see what I talk about when we get to next week. So until then, I'm Enrique, and I'll see you next time. Peace.